Hello, everybody. This is Pro Football Enterprises. We appreciate you joining us. We are doing a mock draft tonight of the Miami Dolphins. We will just see how many rounds we get to. Probably will already be posted in the title if you're clicking on this. Joined by Austin Freed. Austin, very excited to have you on board. We love doing these mocks for teams. We do our best. We are not we are not trying to say that these are the players that must be drafted and it cannot be changed. We are trying to have discussions. What's sitting there? What would logically be sitting there at the positions we're getting the draft, and then we try to take the needs into account and things like that. So, Austin, I'm going to play general manager tonight. I'll make the actual final pick, but it'll lean heavily on your contributions from what's available. How are you feeling about the Miami Dolphins, real quick though, before we get started here?
I'm not very optimistic this year. I think this is going to be a tough rebuilding year for them. I think there's a
Right.
lot of needs. It's a tough quarterback situation. It's a new head coach. So I'm not looking forward to this year if I were a Dolphins fan. But I do think this is, something to be excited about. We're in draft season. You get to figure out who you potentially are building around, especially on the defense. Hopefully we find someone to build around because it's pretty rough.
All right. All true and all fair. I've been watching the Dolphins, well, for decades, but I've specifically been paying attention to the Miami Dolphins for about 5 years now. Really enjoy keeping up with them and trying to play armchair general manager. So I get to be temporary general manager here tonight. We're going to jump into these picks here. We are using the stick to the model mock draft simulator. So this is the first time I've used this on air. Typically, we're using other simulators. We thought we'd give this one a try. I've used it several times offline. We're going to use it online tonight. So if we have any difficulties navigating just from not using it quite as often, I apologize for that straight up. All right. I'm going to go ahead and kickstart the draft here. And while it's doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm hoping to accomplish, Austin. I I was going to want to do this no matter who the new head coach was, but I think especially with Halfley coming in as head coach, the number one thing I'm looking to do for the Dolphins is get some mean, tough, hit you in the face kind of players. I really want to establish that kind of culture for the Miami Dolphins. We don't have to pick all the players like that, but I'm looking to trend toward that kind of players, which would typically lead toward players in the trenches, but not always. If we find a wide receiver or defensive back that's going to work that kind of a pattern, be just the tough, physical, tone setting kind of a guy, I really want to bring those kind of players in. Now, position wise, there's a lot of people who suggest that the offensive line is not big on the Dolphins' worries. I admit that it is improved. I'm still looking to add another offensive lineman here at some point, and I that would mean a lot to me. Defensive line is pretty good, but I would love to add another guy right in the middle at defensive tackle to add to what we've kind of been trying to work on here. So that would help. Secondary is atrocious. It wouldn't bother me if we drafted three defensive backs, to be quite honest about it. We're not going to do that, I don't think, but it wouldn't bother me if we did. And then, of course, with Tyreek Hill being gone, which a lot of people anticipated, folks have been asking the Dolphins to pick up another wide receiver for several months now. That's not necessarily at the top of my list, all things considered. But if we see a wide receiver that's just sitting there that we like, man, I'm all about that too. So those are some of the things I want to do. We'll go any direction though. I'm never going to pass up a football player that you and I like because it doesn't fit one of our top needs. So that's some of the things that I'm looking at here. So Austin, we're picking 11 here. Keldrick Falk and Ruben Bain just went off the board. So where do you want to go here?
It's a bummer they went off the board, but we will be all right because there are a lot of names up here just to like. First off, I can't emphasize how big of a need corner is for this team.
Yeah.
So there are three of them that I see on the draft board up there. You've got Jamal McCoy, you've got Mansour Delane, and you've got Avion Terrell. And to me, Jamal McCoy is the highest upside of these guys by a long shot, but he does have a little bit of an injury question, and I just don't know that that's something we want to risk right now in Miami. But
Okay.
like I said, this year's kind of, I don't want to say a wash, but we don't have super high hopes this year. And if he can get healthy and move past it and be all right moving forward. I think that's a fantastic high upside pick. Delane, I think, is a much safer pick. I don't think is going to be some sort of shut down outside corner, but I do really like his ability to just be a really solid guy you can stick on the outside in one-on-one matchups, and he will be a solid, rock solid guy for you even. And then Terrell, more of that nickel style cornerback who I think is less of what Miami needs right now. So I am between McCoy and Delane if we want to go with a corner. I would love taking a look at Sonny Styles here, and that's just because I'm a big fan of his. I don't necessarily think it's a need, but if we're looking at best player available, he is my highest graded individual player on the board, and I'm a best player available kind of guy for most teams in most situations. So those would be my three picks. If I could make one, I would go with one of those three guys.
I'm going to go ahead and pick Sonny Styles, but before I do it, let's talk about it, just the conversation, because I'm with you. I love Sonny Styles, and it's not our biggest need. I didn't even mention it during the four position groups that I wanted to address most, but I love Sonny Styles, and I'm not suggesting that he should go top 10 or top 8, although I'd be fine if he did, but I just really like his game, and he could really help out this defense from more than one. I like two things that he does really well. I think he could help out a lot. So that's probably that is what I'm going to do here. The defensive backs though, if Styles wasn't sitting here, or if our room in the Miami Dolphins headquarters on draft day was leaning defensive back, I would have no problem with Jermab McCoy if healthy, and with Mansour Delane. Both of those would be welcome additions. I think they're very different players, but with the injury consideration, I'd much rather take Mansour Delane over McCoy until I know for sure that McCoy is ready to rock and roll here. Since it's such a high pick, that's going to be where I would lean here. If you're in the audience and you see another player here that you're just in love with, and you're like, y'all didn't even mention that guy, there's several good players here. Okay, there's several of them, and we're not going to sit here and talk about all 20 players that are available at each spot. But for me, anywhere from Malagoa to Peter Woods to Makai Lemon to even Vega Ione, these are guys that are good players that teams should be looking at. One other reason I want to grab Sonny Styles here, in my opinion, Sonny Styles would be a perfect fit for both the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to help out both of those defenses. I think they would both love to have him. And the idea that that player is coveted lends more credence to the idea that that's a player I should be trying to get if he fits what I want to do. So, any last thoughts here before we click on Sonny Styles, man?
I think Sonny Styles' like best comp is Jordan Brooks. So to have him in Miami
Wow.
where he can work with Jordan Brooks, I think is a great thing for Sonny as a player to develop as well. I don't want to think it's too redundant, but Brooks was turning 30 this year, 29 or 30 this year. So, and I'm not exactly sure what his contract looks like, but it's good to have depth, and I think they can both play, and I think that will be a welcome addition.
Agreed. This will help out the defense. Just for people that are curious about the simulator, this one does offer several trades at almost every level. Instead of you having to build one, it offers them straight up. So under this model, if the Dolphins wanted to, they could get 14 and 115. We could get 26 and 60, 19 and 51. Obviously, each simulator is going to be a little bit different about what they're willing to offer on trades, but that's what this one is offering. Let's do it. Let's click on Sunday Styles here and move on. Pick 43. Let's see what picks we've actually got here. Just to remind everybody, we have 43, 75, 87, 90. So we kind of get to control this area right here tonight. Austin, where do you want to go next?
Well, now it's time to really lock in and look at our DB situation here. So who do we have?
Let me go ahead and click on CB first. We can hit safety if you want as well.
Yeah, let's throw those in. It's less of a direct need, but yeah, no one really up there. Keith Abney is a guy who I've said in these mock drafts we've been doing that I do approve of. I think he is a good player. Let's see who else is up here. Yeah, he's my highest rated outside corner. That'd probably be my pick. Let's just see who's on the just top general board though. Let's just make sure we're not passing up a great player who fell to us for some reason.
Right.
Um, Akeem Mesidor, I do like. Max Clare, I do like. I don't necessarily think tight ends are the biggest need for us, but it is a need. Omar Cooper Jr., no Tyreek Hill on this team, could add something to this wide receiver room. I don't think that would be a bad pick. This is about where I'm comfortable taking him as well. So I'm really looking at Abney, and probably Cooper will be my next favorite pick.
I was looking at just at a quick glance at the board here. I was looking at Abney and Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson to me would be a tone setter. The tape I've watched of him, he's a get after it kind of guy. He's not going to back off of anything, so I really like that. But I do like Abney as well, and the fact that you mentioned him first, that's where we're going to go. So I do like that we kind of sort of have our pick. And well, listen, everybody who's watching and all the mock guys and us, we'll all have our different takes on where these defensive backs should be ranked. But I do like the idea that we've got several guys here in a cluster sitting here in the second round that we could pick from. So that's anybody from Abney, Pons, Chris Johnson, Dylan Thineman, if you like him at safety. I'm not seeing anybody else on the top of the list here, but so anyway, let's do it. Defensive back is a huge need for us, and we both like Abney, so we're going to add him real quick here. What have we done so far? Sonny Styles on defense and Keith Abney on defense. You'll notice we get grades here. I don't actually care what grades the simulators give me. It means nothing to me. But what that always means, 90% of the time, the simulators usually base that on how far up or down you picked that player based on where they value the player, which is fine. Sometimes they even account for need as well, but usually it's just based on big board rankings. Okay, here we go. What you got? All right,
All
Austin, give it to us,
right.
man.
Yeah, so I'm looking. I see Derek Moore. I think Edge is a pretty solid need for us. I haven't gotten to his tape yet, but I know a few people who are very high on him. So that is someone I would consider. Um, I think defensive interior is potentially a need. I like Daryl Jackson Jr. and I like LT Overton. Um, so those are a couple guys who I also like. Trinidad Chambliss is not going to be on our board since he's going back to college,
Right.
unfortunately. Um, let's see. Do you mind just kind of? I see Malik Muhammad. He's a name I've thrown out multiple times in this. I'm a big Malik Muhammad fan, and like you said, if we grab two or three corners, you would not be upset. That's an
Yes.
absolute name I like. Let's see. I'm not really looking running back. Yeah, I think those names I mentioned. Is that Malachi Fields I see receiver up there for Notre Dame? Yeah.
Yes,
I
it
like
is.
him as well. I'm a Malachi Fields enjoyer personally, so that would also be a name that I'd be cool with.
Let's roll over and do a quick look at wide receiver here. It's Burks, Fields, the Speedy Thompson, Ted
If
Hurst.
you want to replace Tyreek Hill, I have a name for you.
I think I know what that name is. Give it
Yeah,
to us, man.
Brennan Thompson. If you want to replace Speed, Thompson at this point in both of their respective careers, I would bet would beat Tyreek Hill straight up in a race. That is because Tyreek Hill is has a torn ACL right now. When Tyreek Hill gets healthy, I don't know, but It would be close. I would wager it would be very close.
Let's do a quick glance because I joked about taking more than one defensive back here. So let me just pull up the CBs and the safeties here. So Traden Stukes, Muhammad, you already mentioned, Genesis Smith, Chandler Rivers. I like this group here, but nothing screams take me based on the other guys I'm seeing. You mentioned LT Overton and Derek Moore, both of whom I'm fine with. Let's see. Malachi Fields. Probably I'm actually going to pick a guy that you did not mention because
Yeah, go for
I
it.
like him that good. But if I weren't going to do that, the pick I think I would make here, you mentioned it, is Brennan Thompson. You and I have talked about more than once about how we have changed some of our feelings on certain types of things within the draft. I've moved a little bit, not a lot, a little bit more in favor of small receivers if I see something I really like. With Brennan Thompson, it's obviously the speed. Now, he offers more than that. He's actually a legit receiver, but that overarching speed level is tremendous. So, if you're going to use that, if you've got an offensive coordinator who's willing to use that, and so many of them are these days, that's the pick I would make if I was going to take one of the guys you picked here. The guy sitting at the top of the board for me, though, is Dominique Orange. That's the pick I'm going to make. I really like him. I've watched him a couple of years in live games at college at Iowa State, and that I've already done quite a bit of tape work on him as well. And I just continue to enjoy his work. This is a guy that holds up in the run game. Big guy, can do two gap, can do one gap in versus run, and gets pressure on the quarterback. And even at his size, will make plays all the way out in the flat and at the boundary on some of these plays that get stretched out. I really like Dominic Orange. I won't sell him any more than that, other than to say I really do like him. I can keep adding on that, but I don't want to keep selling and pumping a guy. Dominic Orange is the pick I'm going to make though at defensive tackle. We were just hitting the defense. I didn't necessarily plan to only hit the defense, but that's what we're going to do here. Dominic Orange getting added on. We have several picks still coming that are clustered together. 87 and 90. We get both of them to get 111. We'll probably stop right there, Austin. I think so we'll quit tonight. We'll do three more players here. But where do you want to go now, having considered that we've done three defensive players so far?
Uh, defense in this draft for Miami is not necessarily a bad thing. As I mentioned,
No,
sort of
it's not.
near the top of this, they really need some guys that you can potentially build around on that end. But let's take a look here. I see Michael Trigg. I think he is a fine value at this point in the draft. We mentioned Malik. I mentioned Malachi Fields as someone I would be comfortable taking with our last pick. So, I mean, obviously, good to go there. Let's see. Can we just sort actually by like receiver and tight end?
All right, there it is. Wide receiver, tight end. Oh, man. Okay. Brennan Thompson's still sitting there as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely on my board as well. Don't think I'm quite as high on him as you, just straight up, but I do very much like him for his speed. Other receivers I like, the tight end Jack Endries I am pretty okay with. Kevin Coleman's a
Okay.
receiver that has been moving up draft boards like crazy, and I would not be surprised if this is about where he goes in the actual draft. So I think he is a fine pick around here. That's probably as low as I would go right now. And I love me some Justin Jolie, but
Right.
not this early.
Okay. I'm going to let you make this pick. I between Malachi Fields and Brendan Thompson. When we've hit defense this hard, I'd be fine going defense again. But we
Hmm.
could use a wide receiver. There are people who would scream for it, and that's fine. There's there's a there's actually several pass catchers sitting right here. So I'll even add in Michael Trigg. Between Trigg, Fields, and Thompson, I'll let you make the choice here in just a second. I do want to advertise for Ted Hurst a little bit. I think a lot of people often feel a little cheated when they pick somebody, when their team picks somebody from a small school, and I understand that. Ted Hurst could have played at bigger schools, decided not to. This is a legit NFL receiver, and I'm not going to pump for him to be picked 50. and I'm not going to scream if he drops to 150. But to me, when I've watched Ted Hurst and I've already done some tape work on him, legit NFL guy, and wherever your team picks him, you don't have to feel cheated that you're getting some small school guy with no talent. Ted Hurst, legit guy, legit talent. I've already done some tape work on him, and there's other people that like him as well. Austin, back to you now between Michael Trigg, Malachi Fields, and Brendan Thompson.
Yeah. Well, Hurst, as a pure athlete, might be the best receiver in the class.
Wow.
Just truly dominant athletically all around. I'm not just talking speed. He is very fast, but I think truly an explosive athlete. So if that's what you're wanting, more of a project athlete, I think he's a pick. Malachi Fields to me is sort of what this team needs, though. I think he is a big guy who can go play on the outside. You have Jalen Waddle, who's the more smaller, faster guy. You've had
Yes.
speed paired with speed for years with Hill and Waddle. I think
Right.
now maybe you pair some size with speed and go with Malachi Fields. So that's going to be my pick.
All right, let's do it. Malachi Fields, no disrespect to these other guys. I think we're kind of fortunate to have our pick of pass catchers here at this spot, but Malachi Fields is the one we're going to go with. I listen. I've liked Malachi Fields as well. The size is there, but he's a little light footed too. He can move a little
Hmm.
bit for a
Yeah.
receiver his size. He's not just a one dimensional guy necessarily. Adding him on again, if you're a Miami Dolphins fan and you're seeing another guy that you want, trot it out. I don't need the village trolls to come out and scream and pick about things, but if you see another guy on the board you like, legit, tell us. So no surprise here. I'm going to go back to the big board here, but a couple of the guys we were still looking at are still here. But I'm going to go back to the overall board and take us wherever you want, Austin.
Can I see the edge rushers? I think we need some juice coming off the edge, and there hasn't
Yeah.
just been one that I've loved at our draft position yet. So I think it's time to scroll down and really take a look at those. Um, Gosh, I do not like this edge class. Uh, I'm low on most of these guys. Um, let's see. Derek Moore is already gone. Gotta go way down on my board for any of these guys. I think my highest one that I'm seeing, if I'm doing this right, would be Caden Curry. Is that really the highest? No, that can't be. I wouldn't be comfortable taking him here. Um, where's Dennis Sutton on my board? No, I don't think I like any of these guys enough to even justify taking them in the top 100. So let's just move on from that idea. Let's check the offensive line because you mentioned
All right.
there was, I think you mentioned the interior. Did you mention the interior specifically or the tackle? I feel like you said
No,
one.
I didn't, and I cover so many teams. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you what I'm like, what I do and I don't like here for them. I okay. Starting off at center, Aaron Brewer, of course, they're fine at.
Mhm.
The guards are not great, but between Cole Strange and Savanea, I'm okay with one guy returning as starter and trying to work out. I don't like both guys there at the guard spots, and then Patrick Paul and Larry Borum. I think I'm more okay with Paul, and I would love to replace Borum. So it's essentially three spots I'm okay with on the line, two spots, one guard, one tackle that I'd love to, find a competitor for.
Yeah, understandable. I've not gotten this near this far. I haven't watched any tape specifically for any of these guys. I've watched some tape for some of their teammates, but not really looking at these guys too much. The name who I have heard be tossed around as a good player is the Penn State tackle Drew Shelton. He is someone who I've heard good things about. So that would probably be my pick, but that can't come from confidence from me down this far in the tackles yet. My draft time I'll be there. Not yet though.
All right. I've got four names with Shelton being one of them. I'm gonna trot them out. I'm gonna let you make the pick here. Okay. So
Okay.
Shelton is one of those guys. Again, I haven't deep dived on Shelton, but what I've seen looks solid to me. He looks like a guy who could work his way into being a solid tackle NFL level.
Hmm.
Keelan Rutledge. You talk about attitude and tone setter. I don't know that he's the cleanest, purest pass defender, pass blocking guy, but in terms of being big and constantly in your face, mean, aggressive plays, quote unquote, through the whistle, which, often conveys past the whistle. That would be a guy that would fit in great for guard for us to set the tone there. So those are the two offensive linemen. Back over here, there's a guy named Genesis Smith who actually I believe came from Arizona. I don't mean to correct the simulator, but he's an Arizona guy. Genesis Smith, not a great tackler and not a tone setter, but if you're looking for a guy who has, to me, the best range out of all the safeties I've seen in this year's draft, he can cover so much ground, both sideline to sideline and depth to low and low to high. Just a ton of ground that he covers for a safety. Got the long strides. Again, not a great tackler and not going to do too much one-on-one kind of coverage, but wow, can he cover a lot of ground. And then the one other guy that I will go back to because you hit on edges, Jay Sean Barham from Michigan. This is a reach in terms of talent here at 90. I don't have him talent wise up this high, but again, and I would have him somewhere on like 120 probably. But in terms of tone setting, you talk about a guy that is physical, in your face all the time, nonstop, moving downhill, coming off the edge. That's a guy right there that again, that's a rotational guy. I don't ever see him being a full time starter in the league. He's a maybe 400 or 500 snap rotation kind of a guy is where I see him. So those are the names. Jashawn Barham on the edge. At offensive tackle, it was Shelton. And at interior offensive line, it was Keelan Rutledge. And what was the other position I mentioned as well? Oh, Genesis Smith right here at the top from Arizona.
Genesis Smith probably is the highest graded talent out of these guys you've mentioned. And I think for the Dolphins, talent is what we need more than any positional needs right now. So if those are the guys who you want to pick between, I would go with the guy who's highest on the board for us, just in terms of overall grade. And I think that would be the safety Genesis Smith.
Let's do it. Let's remind everybody what we've done so far. We didn't necessarily plan to only pick defense, which is largely what we've done, but me and Austin are both fine with it. This is what was sitting there. It matches our needs. I like what we've done here. So Sonny Styles, linebacker, Keith Abney, cornerback, Dominique Orange, defensive tackle, Malachi Fields, wide receiver, Genesis Smith at safety. Let's do one more pick. We won't do the full 7 rounds tonight, but Austin, let's do one more pick here. Pick 111. Keelan Rutledge still sitting here, of course. Drew Shelton still sitting here, of course. I say, of course, thankfully for us. But where else would you like to go here?
I'm still looking at this offensive line. Keelan Rutledge, I like what you were talking about him. He is a name that I am familiar with at guard. Although I've seen a lot of people say they want to move him to center. I think I've heard a lot of people say that. But um, if he can play guard, if we're confident in that in our scouting room, then I am very much fine with going Keelan Rutledge because I don't really love Shelton as much as I am okay with him at this point, I think. So, and that's probably the same with Rutledge as well, but position of need, I've heard some good things. If we already went wide receiver, I don't really want to double up on that. Corner, still, even though we did just pick a safety, I mean, you can't take too many swings. I saw Justin Jolie down there. This is about where I'm comfortable taking Jolie if we want a tight end. We had a lot of success with Jonnu Smith at tight end, and I think that might be a pretty good comp for Justin Jolie. Um,
Okay.
although different coordinator and everything, but it's a player that's worked in Miami, a similar player to what's worked in Miami before. It would add some speed at the tight end position to make up for Tyreek Hill going. I think that would be a fine pick for me as well.
I do like Joe Lee, and again, I'm totally comfortable with taking him here. You mentioned cornerback. If I were going to take a corner, I'd be interested in Will Lee for his one-on-one cover ability to some degree. Takario Davis, just for his size, I believe he's 6'4", if I remember right. So he's got excellent size there. And even Hezekiah Massis, California
Yeah.
kind of continues to put out solid defensive back prospects. Massis falls within that range, and I'd be comfortable taking him as well. But you mentioned the offensive line sitting right there. We've got two guys to pick from. It can be Shelton or it can be Rutledge. Based on what I said at the outset, wanting to take guys who will set tone and mentality. I'm not suggesting that Keelan Rutledge is going to be an all-star in the making or a Pro Bowler, but this guy will really set the tone and help us out in the run game, and I feel like can hold up to some degree in pass protection. But above all, he's going to set the tone here for us. So we'll do that. Uh, and call it a night. Let's remind everybody what we did here. Almost all defense with two exceptions. Sonny Styles at linebacker, Keith Abney at corner, Dominic Orange defensive tackle, Malachi Fields at wide receiver, Genesis Smith at safety, Keelan Rutledge at guard. I'm very happy with what we did. Obviously, when it comes draft night and everybody's really picking, there may be guys that are not sitting here at all. They may be taking 30 picks higher or lower, depending on how the draft actually works out. But this is what we got. Austin, we'll close it with this. What's your favorite pick here on the board that we managed to put together?
I mean, favorite picks at the top of the draft, Sonny Styles. I love the player. And like I said, I think he comps really well to Brooks, who's had a lot of success there. You'll get to play with him, learn from him, develop. I think that sets up, that's a cornerstone piece you can build a defense around. I truly believe that. So being able to add these picks after is really just complementing that first pick, which I think is the best way you can build a draft. When you grab a cornerstone guy early and just complement it and prepare to build up your other positions along with a true home run of a pick early. So that would be my favorite pick here.
We didn't do it. We didn't do a trade, and we didn't try to slide back and catch somebody. But I'm just going to throw out a scenario real quick because we probably won't do another Dolphins mock this year. This will probably be the only one we actually do. In terms of setting tone and adding talent and addressing the secondary, would you have been intrigued by the idea? Let's say if Sonny Styles wasn't sitting at 11,
Hmm.
would you have been intrigued by the idea of trading back to maybe pick 20? We'd get a couple picks for that, and trying to pick Emmanuel McNeil Warren out of Toledo for this Dolphins defense.
Well, I'm going back in on Warren right now. I'll probably be finishing his final grade up for me tomorrow. So I'll let you know tomorrow. But as of
Okay.
right now, I think I would. I think I would do that.
Okay.
As long as nothing jumps out at me tomorrow that's like, maybe I didn't see that on my first watch. But, I'm a big McNeil Warren fan, and I think him flying around in the secondary would be fun. I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I know I'm not as high on McNeil Warren as you, but I'm still very high on him. And I would be tempted by dropping to 20, knowing that I could get an extra pretty good pick for that
Hmm.
and still collecting a player that I really like for a position of need. I would really enjoy doing that. All right. Austin, thank you as always. Everybody, thank you for watching. This is Pro Football Enterprises. We do a lot of these mock drafts. They are a lot of fun for us to do. So we appreciate you if you're a Dolphins fan or not. Just checking out the draft, checking everything out. This is it. Have a great one. Bye.